Hello there everyone and welcome back, and this video right here is something I promised a few people I would do. As you know, at the end of March, one day before April Fool's Day, I released a rather silly little video that I called the Top 10 Best Progressive Rock Albums. As some of you may have noticed, there were actually more than 10 albums on that list. This was a rather cruel and bizarre attempt at trolling people by creating an utterly ridiculous list. And you know, this was actually inspired by all those really horrible videos you see from people like Watch Mojo, that they're always like the top 10 list of something, and you watch the video and of course it's complete bullshit, just terrible clickbait stuff. But you know, even though the video was terrible, I'm actually very proud of that really incredibly ugly YouTube style thumbnail image I created. Really one of my finest achievements. So this is my actual, real, genuine, personal favorite list of prog rock albums. Actually, there's more than 10. I just sort of picked some randomly without counting them. You might not like this list any better than the fake list, but let's give it a try. Oh, and one thing, when coming up with this list, I decided to limit it strictly to sort of traditional 70s style prog rock. So there's not going to be any krautrock on this. Maybe I'll make a list of favorite krautrock albums someday. But no, there's not going to be any prog metal. There's not going to be, you know, any Dream Theater or sort of prog revival like Spock's Beard or jazz rock. I would have certainly put Soft Machine third on the list if I felt it was kind of like a little bit too far away from prog to make this like, I just want sort of pure 70s prog, you know, guys wearing capes, guys playing 3 keyboards at once, you know, that kind of stuff. Just regular, straight, hardline prog for this list. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look. So starting at the top here, we have Love Beach from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now, we actually have already done that joke. Let's start again fresh. First up, a really great album, 666 from the Greek band Aphrodite's Child. Originally on Vertigo, this is a reissue. Supposedly the US release of this doesn't sound very good, but this reissue is very nice. So this is sort of a concept album about the Book of Revelations by St. John. Vangelis was in this band. Just a wonderful, weird, completely bizarre interpretation of the Book of Revelations done prog rock style. Highly recommended. And this next one is a bit of a toughie because there's several great Van de Graaff Generator albums. I have H2 He, Who Am the Only One. You could also say Pawn Hearts, obviously tough call. This one has a lot of great songs. Pawn Hearts has Plague of Lighthouse Keepers, the really great song. I chose this one just, I don't know, I like it a little bit better, you know, oh well. Number 3, we have Octopus by Gentle Giant. Boy, Gentle Giant released a whole lot of albums. This is probably their best. The Advent of Panurge is one of the great, maybe the greatest Gentle Giant songs. The whole album just rocks like hell. We got this weird sort of custom die cut album cover in the US. I think the UK cover, which is a cool red octopus drawn by Roger Dean, is better. But you know, what can I do? Either way, a pretty radical album. Gentle Giant was sort of a folk rock influenced prog rock band. Released probably way too many albums than they should have, but the early stuff like this or Acquiring the Taste, which is sort of like my close second where it comes to Gentle Giant, or the first 3-4 albums are all pretty fantastic. And speaking of prog rock mixed in with your folk, next we have the Strawbs, Grave New World. The Strawbs actually started out as a bluegrass band. They sort of went folk. They actually recorded some songs with Sandy Denny. And then Rick Wakeman joined the group. Before he was in Yes, he was in the Strawbs. He became sort of famous in the Strawbs. He quickly left the band and joined Yes. A little bit of trivia here. If you're wondering why Rick Wakeman's solo albums are on A&M, but Yes are on Atlantic, you might wonder if he was on Atlantic in Yes, how come he got signed solo to another label? He actually got his solo contract when he was with the Strawbs through A&M. Then he quit the band, joined Yes, who were on Atlantic, which I think caused some issues in terms of his A&M contract, but yeah, that's why he is on a different label than Yes. Anyway, pretty amazing record here. It's not, by this time in their career, most of their sort of folk influences somewhat disappeared. They eventually became even more like mainstream rock, but Grave New World and Ghosts albums from kind of like the early to mid-70s are kind of like the high point in the Strawbs' career. And speaking of Yes, we of course have a Yes album on this list, and it's my personal favorite, the Yes album. Sorry to you folks who love Fragile or Close to the Edge. Good albums, I don't know, I just think everything on this album works perfectly. Every song is solid, there's no filler. This of course has Tony Kaye before Wakeman joined the band. Really not a huge loss. I mean, Wakeman's good of course, but you know, the keyboards on this are pretty cool as well. Yes, sort of went on to make some kind of terrible records a little bit later in the career. I personally am not a big fan of Tales of Topographic Oceans or a few of their other things, but to me, this album right here is like the ideal, perfect incarnation of Yes in my mind. So let's continue the trend of folk and prog rock with Renaissance's turn of the cards. Renaissance was a weird band. They actually started off as a spin-off from the Yardbirds. After the Yardbirds broke up, a couple guys created a new band called Renaissance. They had a lot of personnel turnover, and the Yardbirds fellows actually left, and their next album was like all completely different people on it. They do sort of folksy-ish, folktale-ish rock music. Turn of the Cards is, I don't know, they did several very strong albums. Ashes Are Burning, this one, Scheherazade. You could pick any one of those as your favorite Renaissance record. This one was kind of an arbitrary choice. It's probably just like a millimeter above their albums. Their live album is actually very good as well, live double album. If you don't know Renaissance at all, give them a shot. They're actually not as famous as guys like Yes or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but they are every bit as good, I can assure you. This one is a bit more obscure. One of the only American band on this. We have the self-titled album from Touch, which I think came out about 1969 or so. Has this weird like fold-out sleeve here that opens up and you can see the inside. They were, I guess, maybe about the first or the most influential U.S. prog rock band. This came out, I think, right about the same time as Court of the Crimson King. Didn't really have a whole lot of influence or followers because there wasn't a whole lot of people making this kind of music in the U.S., or at least none of them were very popular. These guys certainly weren't. But still, it's a very, very great album of sort of embryonic prog rock. Next up, we have a Rush album. Which one is it? Oh no, it's Signals. I guess I could have picked Hemispheres or whatever. But you know what, I really love this album. I think the keyboards are really great. It's a lot of fun. Is this like a cyberpunk album or something like that? I'm not even sure. But to me, this is kind of like the pivot point between like their older, more hard rock and stuff, and like the later, goofier, not quite as good keyboard-oriented stuff. Not everyone's favorite Rush album. You might disagree with this choice, but you know, I think this might be my favorite album from Rush. Okay, and here we have another tough call here. Snow Goose from Camel. Any of their first three albums are pretty spectacular and solid. I could have easily gone with their second album, Raj. There are just so many damn riffs, so many great prog rock riffs on their records. The band Opeth, who you may have heard of, sort of admits to lifting riffs from them. If not heard of them, they are just sort of, I mean, the most sort of classic, quintessential British prog rock you could ever possibly imagine. And of course, No List and some of the commenters had the original video pointed this out, would be complete without King Crimson. So we have Lark's Tongue in Aspic. I'm not actually a huge fan of In the Court of the Crimson King. Has a good beginning, good ending. Middle is a little weak, kind of rambles on a little. This album I think is pretty solid all the way through. Of course, it has the song Lark's Tongue in Aspic, which they probably recorded 400 versions of by now, where every single album was like Lark's Tongue in Aspic Part 5. But I think what really makes this album work is Jimmy Muir, the second percussionist. If you ever, check out on YouTube, looking for a video of King Crimson playing Lark's Tongue live in the 70s. You'll see that when Jimmy Muir was in the band, he was a totally crazy guy, and his presence, I think, kind of pushes this one over the top for me. Second choice would probably be Red. All their other albums, they have their fine points and their not so fine points, but this is one of the ones, along with Red, I think, that works absolutely the best. So let's get a little bit of French prog rock on here. It's Magma, Mechanic Destructive Commando. They released a lot of albums. This one is perhaps the finest, led by a drummer. Not a lot of prog rock bands focus as much on the drums. Science fiction sort of themed prog rock album sung in a made-up language. Really fantastic. Better than so much of the other sort of continental prog rock out there, which sometimes doesn't work that well for me. Again, there were other very good Magma albums, but this is, I think everyone agrees, this is far and away the best. Alright, let's leave off with some Genesis here, and my personal favorite by far is probably Foxtrot. Yeah, Selling England by the Pound is really good. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is good. Maybe it's a little bit too long. To me, though, this is the one that's just, solid all the way through. Supper's Ready, such a great song. I don't know, of course some people will like some of their later albums better. For the record, I actually really do hate the 1981 self-titled Genesis that I put on my list. I simply cannot stand that record. I don't really care that much for Genesis. Once they became a trio, their Duke is okay, I guess. But anyway, I'd say this was absolutely tops Genesis right here. So we have one left, and this one is Pink Floyd's Metal. Not everyone's favorite Pink Floyd album. I'd say this, Wish You Were Here, Saucer Full of Secrets, and the live record from Ummagumma are my favorite Pink Floyd. Don't really care that much for Dark Side. It's okay. Animals is good. I guess some of the other stuff is kind of wishy. I hate the final cut, the absolute worst Pink Floyd record in my opinion. How can anyone listen to that without falling asleep is beyond me. Anyway, this of course has Echoes, the all-time greatest Pink Floyd song. Like I said, to me this is the one I enjoy the most. Feel free to disagree or tell me I'm an idiot in the comments by all means, but well, that takes care of it. So I feel kind of bad I wasn't able to fit any Italian prog rock on here. I was thinking of maybe something from Banco or one of those bands. I like Italian prog, but I guess I don't love it. I guess we all have different tastes. Anyway, that wraps it up. Hopefully you like this list a little better than the last one. And once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.